This is a video I've wanted to make for some time because I think it is very, very noticeable on YouTube. And that is what I would describe as echo chamber videos. Echo chamber videos. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that you come across certain videos, and this may be part of the domain of a certain channel, or maybe independent videos, but they tend to generate opinions that kind of fall into line, that are unanimous. There's very little diversity of opinion. Um, and it makes you wonder, A, is there comments being censored that are critical? Or B, is it that the particular channel is generating a sort of uncompromising, unflinching, subservient viewpoint that this is the gospel, this is right, and all other opinions are dissenting? I can quote a few examples. Just that I'm familiar with. I am not saying these are unique, but check out any video from Russia today. I haven't made any secret of my dislike for RT, my deep dislike for RT in the past. I believe it's a mouthpiece of the Kremlin, but um, that's not here or there. The point is, if you look at any RT video and you look at the comments below, they're almost entirely in agreement with whatever's being said, whether it be Putin puts Western journalists on the spot, um, Putin proves West wrong, Putin this, that, or the other. So there's a personality cult around Putin that is promoted by Russia today. They will deny that, of course, but it's very, very obvious. Um, this sort of echo chamber mentality is very noticeable on RT videos. People, and what I find interesting about it is people circulate towards it and they say that they're rebelling against mainstream media, or rather, they go to RT because they don't trust mainstream media, by which they mean primarily CNN and the BBC, which are the two biggest Western networks. Um, but I think that that term mainstream media is contentious. Let me first of all say there's many areas CNN and BBC can be justifiably criticised. They both have blatant biases. I've been very critical of both, but if they're described as mainstream media, then the insinuation is that any other point of view is not mainstream. In the case of RT, that is misleading, because RT is not some small independent network. RT is part of the Russian government. It is mainstream in that sense. It's a mainstream Russian network. So to say that RT speaks out the truth against mainstream media is just a misconception. It's a false narrative because RT is mainstream in its own way. It's just that because it's bashing the West all the time, then people think it's somehow independent. It's not. It's part of the Russian government. You'd have to be pretty gullible to not see that. In fact, I don't know how anyone could look at RT really objectively and not realize that what it is doing is trying to absolutely say the West is wrong on all occasions. The West is corrupt. The West is wrong. The West is hypocritical. The West is this, that, and the other. And yet it never, ever, ever criticizes Putin or scrutinizes any problems in Russia. That's why RT is such a despicable, nasty little nationalist mouthpiece. And that's why I don't like it. Because I think it is one of the major weapons that is used in an agenda, a Moscow led agenda to try and destabilize the West, whether that be interfering in elections, whether that be getting paid trolls to spread pro Putin comments. But this all relates actually to the nature of echo chamber videos. It isn't just RT. I think RT is a good example of it, but you get others, individuals who post videos that are praising Putin, or it could be others. It could be pretty much any leader who's critical of the West. It could be Bashar Assad. It could be I've seen it with Pan Africanist leaders like so and so puts journalists on the spot, etc. But there is a recurrent theme with these sort of videos, and that recurrent theme is criticism of Western governments and Western institutions. I mean, almost unanimously, that is the recurring theme. So this echo chamber sort of logic, it's if you look at the threads, virtually every comment is similar. It's an agreement. It's saying the West is this, that, or the other. Now, if they're genuinely independent opinions, that would be fine. But I cannot help but think there's kind of a dynamic going on here of I don't know the psychological term for it, but it's definitely an echo chamber in the sense that people are not thinking for themselves. They're listening to whatever the protagonist is saying, whether it be RT or whether it be an individual, and they're just lapping it up because they want to vindicate their own biases. How I feel is every network is biased, every network is flawed. But it is interesting if you go to a BBC video, you'll find the opinions tend to be a lot more diverse. You'll have some supportive comments, you'll have quite a few critical comments as well. Why do you not see that on RT videos? They're either censoring comments or they're attracting people who will not think for themselves. That's what I would conclude because that is um, so noticeable in terms of the traction of thought. And I find it quite alarming because this is infiltrating into social media. You're seeing it on Facebook, you're seeing it in other social media tools, and it's I think in the future we're going to see increasingly wars and conflicts fought through digital means. Um, and we're already seeing signs of that. I mean, both the war in the Donbass and the Syria war are very much media driven wars, more than any others that I can think of. Um, and social media plays a big part in that. So the next time you check out a video, I would urge you look at the comments and think, well, am I endorsing this because I really do believe that that's my honest opinion, it's my conviction? Or am I just endorsing this because it is saying what I want to hear? Because I don't like the British government, or I don't like the EU, or I don't like whatever it may be, and this is telling me what I want to hear, so I'm lapping it up. Now, I'm not going to lie, we all have our opinions, and I won't deny if I hear editorials or punditry that I agree with, I agree with it. But I also try hard to be aware that every network has its biases. So I never absolutely endorse any network. And I think that's healthy. I think it's good to question. It's a bit like what I was saying the other day about conspiracy theories. It's good to question power. So if you're lapping up everything RT tells you and you think that you're being free minded, because it's criticizing the European Union or it's criticizing the British government or it's criticizing, I was going to say the American government, but that whole dynamic has changed now with Trump at the helm. In fact, Trump is doing RT's work for them. Um, but the whole dynamic of what we choose to believe and how we lap it up is very, very, very important. In the end of the day, we cannot know everything. And I don't think it's a case of, oh, well, don't listen to anyone, don't believe any media source, because you can practically find out things for yourself. I mean, you might say, oh, I don't believe anything Western media says about Syria. I'd rather go myself. Well, you could go to Syria. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to know the truth. For one thing, you wouldn't get a visa, but even if you did go, I think that's also a flawed argument saying that just because you go somewhere, you're going to get to know the whole truth. It's a bit like those Fidel Castro apologists who said, oh, I've been to Cuba and it's not as bad as it's made out to be, as if they're going to show you the detention cells, as if they're going to show you the locking up of dissidents. So we also have to have the humility to recognize we're never going to know everything. No matter how open minded or smart you think you are, and this applies to everyone, including me, we will not know everything. We just won't. Even journalists can't know everything, no matter how much integrity they have, no matter how much work they do, they can never absolutely know everything because certainly in authoritarian states, the work is restricted. But there is inherent biases. I'm a big believer in media accountability, and I believe there is a long way to go in Western democracies in terms of the media having more accountability. But in more authoritarian states like Russia, I believe the problem is the reverse, where governments have too much control on the media. I mean, RT is just a mouthpiece for Putin. That's all it is. And anyone that can't see that, I feel sorry for them because they're being misled and they are being used, basically. It's like those who lap up everything Bashar Assad says. I have known Syrians who hate Assad, but that doesn't automatically mean they're pro ISIS or they're Islamists. They also hate ISIS. These are ordinary Syrians who recognize the brutality of both sides. Um, and it scares me how misled people are in terms of, or rather, let's say, how willing people are to just go with the flow, to just follow the crowd. So, unfortunately, there is quite a lot of these echo chamber videos online. I've singled out RT, but there are other sources. Sometimes they're from individuals. And be very wary of clickbait videos. Like, so and so tells the truth about this. That is one of the biggest catch lines. You know, so and so tells the truth about Western media, tells the truth. Uh, whose truth? That is an entirely subjective point of view. To say that they're telling the truth. I mean, I'll give one example. I forget her name now, but there was a Canadian journalist, so called independent journalist, who was basically an Assad supporter. Um, and she was held up. She was held up to be some sort of great crusader for truth who was speaking out against Western media. But that, I've forgotten her name now, but her position was automatically flawed because by her own admission, she was an Assad supporter. Now, how can you be an independent journalist if you're favouring one side of a conflict over the other? And I must admit, there's times I get infuriated by how ignorant people are in terms of their echo chamber thinking. People say, oh, she's just telling the truth. Well, wake up, people. If someone is supporting one side of a conflict over the other, they're clearly not independent. And it's a stubborn and arrogant refusal to accept basic terminology. Someone who is promoting an agenda is not independent. They're just not. I may have temporarily forgotten her name, which is a pity because it's a good example of what I'm talking about. But she's been held up as some sort of heroine. You look at any video with her in it, all the comments will be slavishly like, "Oh, she's a hero. She's telling the truth." Blah blah blah. It's very frustrating because, like I said, echo chamber. What I find refreshing is videos where you have a diversity of opinions, some pro, some anti, but you have debate, you have discussion. What I find very off putting is videos where it's just this everyone just blindly agrees. And it's like, come on, people, wake up. You're being used. You're useful idiots. I'm not saying I'm better than anyone else. I'm not saying I know more than anyone else. The very point here is I don't know everything. None of us do. None of us do. So have the humility to recognize that every big network has an agenda. RT has an agenda. And it might be that you dislike the European Union, the British government, whatever. Um, if that's the case, then really you need to think, well, am I endorsing RT because it really is the truth, or am I just endorsing it because they're bashing the EU, or they're bashing Theresa May, or they're bashing Justin Trudeau, or whatever it might be? People need to think critically. They need to come in with an open mind. And if you're endorsing these echo chamber videos where people are just slavishly agreeing, then you're not being open minded. You're being used. And the power is, these videos often have millions and millions of views. I find that very concerning because it indicates to me they are influencing people. And this potentially has consequences when people then vote on what they are hearing and what they are believing. We're talking, we've heard about alleged Russian interference in the American election and Brexit. Whether that's true or not is, I don't think anyone can rationally question that at least Russian state media has tried to direct and influence how people think. I don't think anyone can honestly dispute that. When you look at, for example, their stance on the Scottish independence or Catalan independence debates, RT actively promoted both movements. Why? Because they wanted to see the destabilization of Western countries like the UK and Spain. So people really need to just think for themselves and not just believe everything they say. People might say, "Oh, you believe Western media?" No, I don't actually. You'll find I am very critical. I mean, you can give me any network and I can say, yeah, there's bias. CNN has a liberal bias, right? BBC has a left wing bias within the British context, although Corbynites would say it's anti Corbyn. Sky News has a right wing bias. You name it. Every network has a bias. But we need to recognize that bias and not let these people say and do what they want. I'm not saying, they should be threatened or anything like that. There's been an awful atrocity tonight in Maryland. Apparently, a gunman went into a newspaper studio and shot 5 people. It's an ongoing story. I've been following it. But I'll just close up with this. When you look at videos and, all the comments are the same or similar, you need to think, are people really, really thinking for themselves? Or are they following the crowd? I urge people, please think about it. Because otherwise you'll find that you won't know. You're just being used.